Right, hello everybody. Welcome to this week's Prem review. Late as it always is, of course. Going to be talking about all of the results from the Prem. Going to be talking about that Ronaldo interview, which was pretty explosive and certainly is going to impact on United's season in one way or another. We'll talk about the England selection for the World Cup. Not that I really give a shit about the England team, as you can see, but a lot of people have been wanting to get my thoughts on that, so may as well record it, right? So without any further ado, loads of people have been saying, oh, when are you going to talk about City? Right, well, okay, fine, let's do it. Let's talk about Man City losing to Brentford. All right, dickhead, how's your City today, dickheads? Obviously, I've said it many times, it doesn't matter how good a team is in the Prem, you're going to concede points, you're going to lose silly games, especially if you're one of the top teams. You have these midweek games where you've got to travel, your players are playing, and you're getting exhausted at double the rate non-European teams are. This is when the slip-ups occur. And Man City, as great a team as they are, arguably the best team in the league, certainly one of the best teams in the world, it's going to happen to them too. So let's sort of talk about the wheres and the whys. And the first thing that really struck me right from the get-go was just how sluggish City were out of the gates. I mean, if you ever want an example of a team clearly struggling with European football in the middle of the week, here's your example. Because within 15 minutes, Brentford had 3 chances. They could have been 3 up if it wasn't for some desperate defending. And the one thing I really liked about Brentford in this game was they were able to identify physical mismatches in the back line of Man City, and there were a few. I mean, obviously, this aggressiveness did spill over into an unfortunate incident where Laporte had a head injury, which delayed the game for 7 minutes. While he had to get stitches and bandages, I believe. But in general, Brentford's philosophy was really good. They were like, look, we've got some big, strong guys playing up front for us. Obviously, we're going to talk about Ivan Toney, but you know we've got some big, strong guys playing up front for us. And if we run at these defenders, and if we go for aerial challenges with these defenders, if we put these defenders under pressure, we're going to get chances. And that's exactly what happened. Now, obviously, Ivan Toney was having a bit of a tough time. He was left out the England squad, as we now know, is subject to a betting probe for irregular betting. Obviously, if you're a player, you're not supposed to bet on any game in football because it's determined you could have insider knowledge. Shout out to the esports fans that still don't get this concept. And then it turns out that over a period of something like 4 years, they're looking at potentially something like 232 bets from Ivan Toney. Now, when you consider Trippier had a 10-game suspension for leaking information to a friend about a potential transfer move that enabled his friend to win a pretty small bet, all things considered. I don't know how hard they're going to come down on Ivan Toney. And the FA did say that actually he was left out of the World Cup squad purely for footballing reasons. I don't buy that for a second. I don't think you should buy that for a second. The FA is clearly going to whisper in Southgate's ear, like, it's going to be a terrible look if we have a player go to a World Cup and he scores like a winning fucking goal or something, and then we got to suspend him when he gets back from international duty for betting irregularities. So leave him at home. And, you know, Ivan Toney responded to this in the best way possible. I mean, he was the tip of the spear for Brentford in this game. Absolutely world-class performance. I think Toney's best performance of the season. And I like Ivan Toney. Obviously, you know, Toon alumni, we didn't hold on to him. I like him as a player. I potentially would have put him ahead of Callum Wilson, honestly, in the squad because he's got the unbelievable cool penalty taking and his immaculate penalty taking record, which, you know, you need at international level, and also he has a better fitness record than Callum Wilson. So I can't believe for a second that it wasn't this FA probe, which is to why he didn't go. But anyway, he got 2 goals here, and this is all about just identifying those mismatches in the back four. City really do miss having a bit more physicality at the back, and while their defense has been pretty good this season, it's not the best defense in the league, and I said I think that they can potentially leak goals. They essentially defend in, you know, higher up the park. That's where they do their best work, which isn't to say that, you know, they don't have good defenders, but I've never really been sold on Stones. I think he is one of those beneficiaries of being an English international that, you know, City have to sort of work within. I think he played him onside for the first Brentford goal here. And the manner in which Brentford won as well, it really spoke to just having that better engine and that better game plan. They could have been 3-0 up at the start, but at the end, and remember, there was like 10 minutes of added on time in this game because of that head injury. They ran to the end. They were clean through on goal to go 3-1 in the final seconds of the game. De Bruyne, who's the only player on the park for City that didn't stop running and didn't look tired, with a last-minute desperate tackle to clear it off the line. He literally ran from the edge of his box to his own goal line. Deserves a lot of credit, De Bruyne, even in this defeat. But Brentford, probably the best result in the club's history to get one over at City away from home. It was kind of interesting as well, just to pick up on a few little other points at City. Haaland seemed to be frustrated. Phil Foden, probably their best player overall. There was this question again about, should Foden be feeding Haaland more? Haaland made a lot of runs and this time didn't get the balls, which is very unlike a City setup. They're usually looking to play just ahead of the midfield. They're looking to occupy the space, and then the quality's going to kill you. It's De Bruyne, it's Gundogan, it's Grealish. Lol, just kidding. It's Foden. They can play those killer balls to Haaland. He made loads of runs this game and just didn't get fed. This was an example of maybe some weariness, tiredness. The City machine broke down today. But just to talk about Thomas Frank, wonderfully executed game plan. And I know Brentford are inconsistent and they're up and down the table all throughout. People were calling for Thomas Frank to get fired. I don't see that at all. I think he's been a revelation. I think he is a great manager for the Premier League. He understands the Premier League. He understands how to set up a game plan. This is as good a counter-attacking performance as you'll see from a team this season. Because if you look at the possession numbers, it was 75% City. It was 29 shots. A lack of quality, sure, because only 6 of them were on target. But every time Brentford had the ball, they worked it with intent and they looked dangerous. And this is what I mean. City are mortal this season. They are very mortal. And these big games they got coming up after the World Cup, not to mention they got so many players going to the World Cup and they could pick up injuries. That's what's going to dictate the season. Arsenal, as we'll get to, top of the table by 5 points before that World Cup break. And Arsenal have to play City because that was the delayed game, because God bless her, Lizzie was in a box. Spurs Leeds. This was a hell of a game. This was a fucking absolute ridiculous match. And again, we're talking about beleaguered managers here. We're talking about managers that are coming under fire. We're talking about, fans getting a little bit restless. And I'll just start off at that point. I know that they had like a run of 3 defeats. I know that they weren't exactly stellar in Europe against perceived weaker opposition. I know they just lost in the Carabao Cup, which, by the way, real Premier League teams who want to get top 4 shouldn't care about the Carabao Cup anyway. But, I guess a trophy's a trophy if you Spurs. But people calling for Conte to go, or saying Conte's negative, or saying he's not an improvement on what went before, I'm not vibing with that at all. I think when you actually assess the Spurs squad, it's staggeringly poor in some key areas, which I wrote down here, It's like, who's a dedicated ball winner in this team? At Newcastle, we got 2 fantastic ball winners. Like, people who will go in midfield and they're guaranteed to win the ball. Oh, sure, give away a silly foul, but they're going to break up play. Who's doing that outside of Bentancur in Spurs? I don't see it. The creativity, as we've said, there was no Son this game. He was out with an eye surgery. Kulishevsky, who's just come back from injury, he was a menace on the right wing. Backs up everything I said about him being, one of Spurs' best players and actually transformative when he plays. They couldn't have won without him in this game. But, outside of Kulishevsky, what have we got? It ain't great. You've got this void in midfield, and honestly, at the back, it's not an incredibly convincing back 4, is it? I mean, Eric Dyer's come back into the team. He got done a few times in this game. Maybe, again, a little bit leggy, a little bit tired because of, Carabao Cup match, and they've been in Europe too. But for me, I think Conte, relative to the quality in this squad, I think Conte is doing a bang-up job by getting them in the top 4. I defy anyone to say otherwise. Like, when you actually analyze it and you look at the squad, I think this is it's like that quote Mourinho said, where he said, the biggest achievement I ever did was getting second place with that Man United team. Being top 4 with this actual squad here is phenomenal. And look, they're not title contenders. They're going to have a wobble. It's better it comes now than at the end of the season. And obviously lots to digest as the World Cup goes on. But anyway, this was 4-3. This was the game of the weekend. Leeds obviously gave themselves like a really good, a really good chance to win. And Leeds, obviously, they're another one of these mid-table mash-up teams. But it was actually really similar to Brentford. They came out aggressive in a different way, though. They weren't going physical. They actually let themselves down by not being tight enough and not being physical enough. That's how they essentially lost this game, especially but they were a little bit tight towards the end and they weren't tracking runs, and Kulusevski was always free and able to find another free man because by the end of the game they were just too tired. But what I mean by aggressive, they ran, they worked so unbelievably hard with the ball. Every time they had the ball, they were looking to break forward. Every time a midfielder picked up a ball, there was a forward run, typically made by Somerville. Or for me, I know Somerville, I think, got man of the match this game. I think Rodrigo was the better player for me. I know it's like less of a headline because he's in his 30s and he's the experienced dude. But for me, Rodrigo made so much space for Somerville to run into. He worked the channels. He kept going till the very last drop, and obviously had some incredible goals in this game. His second was a delight. So Leeds, obviously, Marsh said after the game they were gutted, to not get anything from this game. But it just came down to effort in the end. When you hit those hard yards down the straight, you got to bust a gut. And despite having many youngsters in the team, that just didn't happen. They weren't tracking runs. There was some real criminal stuff going on the park at various points. I mean, Adams in midfield, just too easy, too lightweight, didn't track a run for Tottenham's winner. And they got to do better there. I know Jesse Marsh is a bit of a meme with the American. He came out and he was like, I can't even do an American accent, so fuck it, but he was like, we're gutted. Absolutely gutted. And it just sounded so ridiculous. But you work on that in training. If your players aren't going to hustle, then this is what happens. Teams with quality, with players like Bentancur and Kane, they're going to fucking punish you. And Kulusevski. That's just the nature of the business. Now, Tottenham Hotspur, I think they'll breathe a sigh of relief here. This could have easily been a draw. They just had that bit more hustle. And look, at the end of the day, Kulusevski, best player on the park for Tottenham. Every time he was in that right channel, he either played a through ball of such quality that it took a defender out the game, or he made a run that wasn't tracked and took a defender out the game. And he created holes and he created space. And honestly, I'm amazed that Kane wasn't able to thrive a little bit more on that. They did lack some quality final balls. Kulusevski only got 1 assist this game, but he was instrumental in all the goals that they did actually score, with the exception of the first goal, which, just for some more refereeing controversy and caliber of referees in the Premier League talk, it was an absolute disgrace that the first goal was allowed to stand. Keepers are overprotected in the league. There's no doubt about that. We all agree with that. But it was Lenglet just shoulder charged the Leeds keeper with no intent to win the ball, no ability to win the ball. And it was like a fucking old Harry Enfield sketch. They just bundled that goalkeeper across the line, and the goal was allowed to stand on the rebound. It absolutely shouldn't have been. Would that have changed the outcome if that goal was disallowed? Impossible to say. Obviously, it was the opening goal. I also do feel that if it had been any other player than Harry Kane scoring it, I wonder how the ref would have felt about it. Kane's one of them, he's got that nice guy image, but he's always in the fucking referee's ear, isn't he? Right from the start of the game. And so, I don't know. I think maybe a draw is the fairer result, but just credit to Spurs for digging this one out. Bentancur again, beating heart of the Spurs team. Arsenal, just to follow on, naturally, Arsenal were brilliant and incredible to watch. They were going away to Wolves. Wolves have had their problems, most notably up front, but it's not good anywhere on the park right now for Wolves. Rock bottom of the table. Arsenal last season might have struggled with this game. Arsenal this season, it was just always in the bag. And I'm not going to dwell too much on it. It was just a workmanlike performance. They had the quality to see off Wolves and break them down. 2 goals for Ødegaard. Just wonderful stuff. And again, all the big names are playing, like you'd expect. Saka, again, great game before he goes away to the World Cup. You've got Martinelli, brilliant again today. Incredible to think they picked him up for $6 million. Gabriel Jesus, he hasn't scored in 6 games now, but the work he's doing for this team is worth its weight in goals. The goal's going to come from midfield. I don't think you need to judge him too much on that. Goal's going to come his way pretty soon. And Partey, of course, continued his excellent form. So it was just comprehensive that Arsenal were the better team here. It was a perfect performance, what you want. What I'm interested in now is what happens to Arsenal season. You're the front runner going away into this World Cup break, and obviously the team that's number 1 at Christmas, and there's a massive caveat this time around, but the team that's number 1 at Christmas usually goes on to win. I think something like 13 out of the last 17 times. So obviously Arsenal are favourites, but when you consider they've got 8 players heading off to the World Cup, man alive, they can't afford to lose any of them. That's how thin the Arsenal squad is in terms of overall quality. If they do lose 1 or 2 players coming back from the World Cup with injuries, even just little knocks and bumps and lumps, it could really derail Arsenal's season in a way that it shouldn't. Well, this World Cup shouldn't be happening. None of it should be happening. It's a unique situation. And certainly anyone thinking Arsenal are still runaway favourites for the league just by virtue of being top in November, you'll get reality checked, because I'm pretty sure they'll fall off at some point. Newcastle-Chelsea. Talking about fall off, when's it going to happen in Newcastle? Well, certainly not here. This 1-0 victory over Chelsea at St. James Park was the type of win we were completely incapable of under Bruce and many, many managers before him. We have never been a defensive team, not in my lifetime. I have watched a procession of some of the worst defenders to ever play the game rock up in a black and white shirt, and even some of them were so good in other aspects of their game, like Philippe Albert, you forgive them for being shit defenders, but shit defenders they were. We've had unbelievable, like that Casapa guy, Boomsong, Bramble, Marcelinho, Warren Barton. If you were to list probably the 10 worst defenders to ever play in the Premier League, I would imagine Newcastle will make up at least 5 of them. So we've been a defensive joke for all of my lifetime. Here we are, not an amazing performance by any stretch of the imagination. Not going to win hearts and minds with this type of football. But you know what? We are now the best defense in the league. Go figure. It's incredible what Eddie Howe has done. And like I say, for all of the talk about, Saint-Maximin and Bruno and Callum Wilson and all of this stuff, it's done on a bedrock of unbelievable work rate and unbelievable defense. And this game, Trippier was a fucking monster. What a way to say to Southgate, like, yo, I'm your guy. I'm the guy that needs to fucking start in these games. And absolutely, he's got to be. I mean, Trent's in the squad, as we'll get to later. Just, staggering performance, because he showed energy levels that I don't know, I've never really seen anything like it. He was running back, he was coming into the centre of the park to win the ball. He was then away on the flank, he was ahead of the midfield, and he was putting crosses into the box, and Trippier still remains one of the best dead ball delivery. All that shit they say about Trent, and how Trent's crossing is outstanding and his dead ball delivery is amazing. It's absolute fucking garbage. It's like you're talking about Trippier. You must be mistaken, sir. Trippier's deliveries in this game were unbelievable. We could have had a couple of goals just from that alone. So Trippier, man of the match for me. It's not just that though. Like obviously Burn and somehow Shea, who's come back into the mix and is actually playing well. He would have been one of the first names on the chopping block for me, along with Lascelles. But he's been transformative under Eddie Howe. Botman, of course, what a fucking signing. Like our defense is actually real. It's real, and sure, as I said earlier, insulated, protected by two defensive midfielders that really want to go and win the ball and then play the ball out. Joe Linton just continues to get it done for his team. I'm amazed. I'm amazed at what's happening. Definitely deserved to win against Chelsea today. Just as a caveat, because obviously this is a Graham Potter propaganda channel, as you know by now. I really talked him into this job. Look, he's still experimenting. I gotta say, he doesn't know his best team yet. That was compounded. He had to make 2 first-half substitutions, one after like 6 minutes. One was Abselaqueta before half-time. It's going to derail your game plan. If you look at the matches that he's played, particularly when, with European games in the midweek, he has been experimenting with his lineup. He's been experimenting with the formation. He has thrown in lots of different ideas. And I don't believe it's just he creates a game plan for one specific opponent. I believe he's still experimenting and trying to see what works, what doesn't work. And obviously, you've got to give him time way too early to say Potter's doing a bad job right now, particularly with the injuries, particularly with just in general, some of the signings that maybe he didn't want to have to honour. And I'll just say as well, they really needed to commit to proper goal scorer in this team, because that was clearly lacking for Chelsea. I'm talking about how good our defenders were. They did have it incredibly easy this game. There was barely any pressure in the box at all from Chelsea, and Newcastle United were just able to fucking get it and play it down the park and do whatever they want with it. Just a strong pressing game, and at the end of the day, Chelsea were just non-existent here. Willock's goal, pretty good. Can't argue with that. He hasn't scored many this season. So yeah, wonderful. Newcastle, are we going to stay top 4? No, I still don't see it. But 15 games in, we're 3rd in the league, which is just mental. And like, as I said, no matter which way this season goes, like, Eddie Howe's got to be a front runner for Premier League Manager of the Year. There's just no doubt in my mind about that. That's not bias. I can't think of a team that's gone from relegation dogfight one season to a change of manager to challenging for Champions League the next season. It's ridiculous. So, yes, and he's done it largely with the same squad. So, Eddie Howe, definitely for me, Premier League Manager of the Year so far. Hard to beat. Right, I have it written down here, right? Talk about the Ronaldo interview here, and I don't know why I did that, right? Because it doesn't make sense, because there's some more games after this. But yeah, let's do it anyway. Who gives a fuck? I'll listen to the golden notepad. So, Cristiano Ronaldo. Many people think he's the GOAT. Less so in Manchester these days, I imagine. He did an interview with Turbo Cunt Piers Morgan. And this is the last desperate act of a man trying to get out of the club. We've known for a long time Ronaldo doesn't want to be at United, doesn't vibe with Ten Hag at all. He's disrespected the club multiple times. Walking away early, going down the tunnel early, leaving games early, and just hasn't looked to be putting in the same level of effort I expect from Cristiano Ronaldo, even though he's 37 years old. But it's crazy because he's a serial badge kisser. He said he came back to this club, after talking about with Sir Alex Ferguson, and said, I could never, and even though I nearly did join City, I was told it would ruin my legacy. I talked to Sir Alex Ferguson. He said, there's no way. So, bam. I did. Well, it's like, listen, mate, you're not... I don't know if you've really misread the situation, but you've ruined your relationship with the Manchester United fans. And I remember when the fans, they were all for Ronaldo coming back. They loved that he turned down City. Got a lot of goals, despite maybe not having great performances in a dysfunctional team that wasn't even being properly managed when he got there. And then clearly he just wants away. He just doesn't like Ten Hag. It's just about that. And he's tried everything to get a move. Now, it's been said in the tabloids, nobody really wants him. like outside of going and playing in a Middle Eastern league for loads of money, or maybe going to like into Miami and you know, hook up with Messi there in some sort of retirement Galacticos project. You're 37, like, you know, you're 37. I'm sure you're still very good, but you're going to have to reset those expectations, buddy. You're not going to be walking into a Champions League team anymore. It's just not going to happen. At the end of the day, this was what he did. He tried to manufacture a move with this interview. Now, he knows when he goes on Piers Morgan and says the things he says, he knows what's going to happen. Obviously, he knows. Yeah, I think it's a disgrace. For me, it's incredible to see a player do it, even in this day and age, with social media fuck-ups happening every week. But here's what he said. These are his quotes about the club. At United, the progress was zero, in my opinion. To compare them to Real Madrid or even Juventus, that they follow the rest of the world. So the technology, especially in terms of training, nutrition and conditioning, eat properly and recover better before, that surprised me. Manchester right now, to be compared with that club, I think it's behind in my opinion, which is something that surprised me. A club with this dimension should be the top of the tree, in my opinion, and they are not, unfortunately. They are not in that level, but I hope the next years they can reach to be in a top level. I don't know what's going on, but since Sir Alex Ferguson left, I saw no evolution in the club. The progress was zero. So, obviously, that's the first kind of repudiation of Ten Hag. What he's done is he's disrupted the season. He's made it all about him and his move away. He's insulted the current manager. And he thinks he'll stay in the fans' good graces if he just continually refers to Sir Alex Ferguson. And I think there's a thing he doesn't really understand about Sir Alex Ferguson. Sir Alex Ferguson was a phenom. He was a manager like almost no other. He will go down as one of the greatest managers in any sport ever. And yes, it wasn't just a will to win, an ability to galvanize a dressing room, a tenacity, a stubbornness, an incredible tactical understanding of the game. It was also a ruthlessness, a tyranny, where he got rid of players. It didn't matter who you were. You know, if you were David Beckham, you were getting a boot launched at your head. If you were Jaap Stam, you're going out the club. If you're Roy Keane, you speak out of turn, you're going. You know, he cut Hall of Fame players. Like, he cut Hall of Fame for United players in Premier League, you know, Hall of Fame. He cut them because he wanted a galvanized unit. And when players see that, they know they're on fucking pack watch from fucking day one. Like, you know, if you this is the man who cut Beckham. Like, this is the man who dropped Keane. Like, who the fuck am I? I better, like, keep my head down and work hard. And also, just the way Sir Alex Ferguson dominated the league by intimidating refs, intimidating the FA, got away with things he absolutely shouldn't have been able to get away with. Not just Fergie time. I'm talking about, like, when his son was in that BBC documentary, he defied the FA's very clear contractual agreement with the BBC that managers will come and do interviews, and he used to send out Brian Kidd. He wouldn't do it. Now, any other manager, you're getting fined until you fucking bend. You know what I mean? Until you kiss FA's ring. The FA was always kissing fucking Sir Alex Ferguson's ring, rusty or otherwise. So, Ronaldo talking about there not being any progress, you can't progress from that. You can't progress from that. They were the best team in the league for years, sustained at a level you probably will never see ever again. Maybe City, who knows? But also, like, a league that even bends to your whim. You know, world-class players that put the manager above everything else and go out there and bleed for the cause. There is no upgrade from that. So I don't know why Ronaldo keeps talking about it. Yeah, sure, you might have a point. Maybe their facilities are a bit tatty by comparison to some of the teams he's played at. But you air these grievances behind closed doors. You never disrespect the club in public. I mean, that's just 101. And then what he said about Ten Hag, he said, the coach doesn't have respect for me. So this is why the relationship is in the way it is. He keeps saying in the press that he comes to me, he likes me, blah, blah, blah. But that is only for the press, 100%. If you don't have respect for me, I'm never going to have respect for you. So, again, this is just untenable. And it's an outrage. And Ronaldo shouldn't have any future at the club after comments like that. I mean, you know, it's ridiculous. The idea that a manager has to go and kiss a player's arse just to get them out there on the pitch and actually trying, fuck that. The manager's in charge, and that's the way it works, and that's the way it should work, and that's just how it has to be. So, yeah, I'm just ridiculous to even think, if you don't respect me, I don't respect you. You fucking respect me because I got the stripes, dickhead. That's why you fucking respect me. You respect me because I'm the fucking boss, motherfucker. Like, I don't even get it. Like, if ever there was a reason to throw a fucking water bottle across a room, it's this cunt. Like, I can't believe it as well, because one of the things you could always say about Ronaldo back in the days, once Sir Alex Ferguson knocked all the rough edges off him, he did become much more humble. He was arrogant, over-exuberant, but he did become a United player. He adopted that to his identity. And so, yeah, he's gone on to do incredible things, and I'm sure, when people talk about he was the greatest of all time, you're entitled to have an ego. But when you come back to play for a club you profess to love, you just keep your head down and get on with it. I think Ten Hag, if anything, has tiptoed around it way too much. I think when he says stuff like, I didn't want to bring him on again in the City game where we got trounced because I respect his legacy too much and I don't want him to have that on his resume. I don't know, again, why Ten Hag has said that publicly, but that now looks to me he was under pressure to explain to Ronaldo via the press as a kind of like intermediary, why you no play me? Why you no play me? And it's like, listen, here's why I don't play you. You're fucking 37. You should be a bit part player at best. You should be coming on and have an impact. And every time I bring you on, you don't have an impact. You have a sulk if you don't fucking start. There's obviously, it was in the press as well, Ronaldo wanted to be captain of the club, and they chose Maguire, and Maguire obviously isn't even playing in the motherfucking team right now. So it's a mess, and this is the first thing Ten Hag was going to have to negotiate. Now, it's been said as well by other players, yeah, this is starting to affect the club now. And so Ronaldo doesn't even have any friends in the dressing room. Just get him the fuck out of the club, and to anyone. Pay him off. Like, pay him off and then sue him. Which, hold that thought. He did say about his future at United, there's one other quote where he said, I don't know what's going to happen after the World Cup, but as I told you before, and I will say again, the fans will always be in my heart, and I hope they will be by my side, even if I come back, or if I'm not back, or if I stay, or whatever. When I arrived at Manchester United, I always wanted to be available to help the team, and to do the good things, to put them in the right spots, to compete with the best teams. But it's hard when they cut your legs, and they don't like you to shine, and they don't listen to your advice. So, by the way, no, the fans are not going to be on your side. Ten Hag is the future of the club, not Cristiano Ronaldo, very much a relic of the past. But also this side, again, just read between the lines. The manager didn't listen to my advice. Fuck your advice. Where's your coaching badge, dickhead? Like, what have you done? I'm Erik Ten Hag, for fuck's sake. Why am I listening to you? Like, I'm one of the most highly respected managers in the fucking world. Like, you're Cristiano Ronaldo. Go kick the ball, and I'll tell the team what to do. All right, that's just how it should be. You see this with a lot of these big sports stars once they ascend and they want to have opinions on everything, and it's like, I get it. There's a life beyond football where you might be a politician, you might be a TV or movie star, whatever. You might be a manager yourself one day. I get it, but that's not now. And so all of these comments are so out of pocket, it's beyond a joke. Subsequently, after the interview, Manchester United have said we're looking at our legal options because he's got 7 months remaining on a £500,000 a week contract. They're looking to see if what he's done constitutes a breach so they can terminate it, which, by the way, that would also be playing into Ronaldo's hands. But you've got a choice, haven't you? You can either cut him and lose the money and just get him out of the club and focus on the rest of the season. They're 5th in the table. They are chasing a very weak Tottenham and an overperforming Newcastle United. It's possible they could get top 4 out of nowhere. So maybe it's worth the money. Maybe it's just worth the money to pay him off and fuck him off. Or you can humiliate him. For that amount of money, for $500,000 a week, you can humiliate Ronaldo. You can have him train with the kids. You can do whatever you want. You can set a lesson and say, it doesn't matter who you are. You can even be the greatest motherfucking player of all time. You will respect the gaffer. You will respect the club. You will respect your teammates. But the problem is, I think having this mopey cunt around the club, it's just not worth it anymore. He's not an inspirational figure right now for these players. He's a destructive influence. So he's got to go for me. He's got to go, Robbie. Get him out of the club. Unbelievable scenes. And just to talk about the United result, I got that down here. We should talk about the football a little bit. They had a narrow win over Fulham. They won in the 93rd minute, 2-1. Nothing to talk about at all. It was a pretty dour game of football. But they're still grinding out there. They're grinding the Ten Hag way. And I think, much like we saw with Arsenal sticking with Arteta, I think you're going to see a much better United next season. They're going to get this out of the way. They're going to get the deadwood cleared, and they're going to go and they're going to kick on up the league. And Ten Hag's going to get his type of players. Next up, Liverpool, Southampton. We didn't talk about Hasenhüttl being fired, and it was just like I said. I mean, this was one of the predictions, certainly accurate if you go back to the very first episode of this series. I said Southampton had banked on, they tried to buy for a future they might not have, and that is both commendable and stupid. They were signing young players without Premier League experience, good prospects, people that had, could be potentially diamonds in the rough. And that's great. That's wonderful. But where's your actual quality? Who wins you games today, not tomorrow? And Hasenhüttl, unfortunately, I like him as a manager, and I like him as a guy. And he was very emotionally invested in the club. But, I mean, look at some of these stats. It was ridiculous. Before this game against Liverpool, they had 12 goals in 14 games. 12 goals in 14 games, less than a goal a game. You're not going to do anything in the Prem if you can't put it in the back of the net. And they just don't have that guy. Like I say, their top scorer is like Shea Adams. It's not good enough. He's not a true Premier League caliber player. He is a championship player. That's been boosted essentially a little bit. Yeah, it was always likely to happen. Southampton are getting sucked into that relegation battle. And so they picked up Nathan Jones, a Welsh boy, fair enough, from Luton. But I got to say, I've looked at his record. I haven't seen Luton play football. I won't lie about that. But, yeah, I don't know. It's a risk. It's a gamble. His post-match interview after being tuned up by Liverpool was, that he'd learnt a lot from his first game in charge, and I don't want a manager learning on the job. I want a guy that's ready. Unfortunately, especially if I'm about to be in a relegation dogfight. But good luck to him, and it is good to see Southampton airlift some managers from the lower leagues of British football, and that doesn't happen a lot in this day and age. It's people look abroad. People want to get a German manager or an Italian manager or something like that, or a former player, galvanize the locker room. Nathan Jones coming in. It's a gamble, but let's see what it does over the course of the season. Anyway, this was 3-1 to Liverpool. A couple of notable things in this game. First of all, Núñez obviously banging in some goals. I'm always amazed by the criticism of Núñez. I don't know why people... I guess it's a meme, or maybe some people are serious, but the idea this guy isn't going to be like one of the Liverpool greats if he gets even 5 seasons at the club under his belt is crazy to me. He is so good in so many areas, and sure, he has some unbelievable whiffs which are borderline hilarious, but generally those happen in the games where he's on for a hat-trick already, and so he's only going to get better with age, and he was great today. I mean, I'm just looking at the record here. Out of his last 10 games, 7 goals, 1 assist. I don't know what more you want from a guy that's up there as a striker leading the line. Old man Milner, 600 matches. He's only the 4th player to get into the 600 club in Premier League history. Incredibly, the guy who played the most games in the Premier League is Gareth Barry, which I didn't know that. But Gareth Barry, Giggs, and Lampard are the only other players that have done 600. So old man Milner, he got awarded some special boots that he didn't even fucking wear for the occasion. And, great role model at the club, super happy for him. We had him at Newcastle for a spell. He was always a good lad, and great to see him still going on, and he's going to get more appearances at this rate. But anyway, Southampton did have a go at Liverpool, and I've got to say, if Liverpool are content with a 3-1 result, fine, but you've got to look at actually what happened in the game, because this could have been another Liverpool disaster for me. 3-1 sounds comfortable. Comfortable it was not. There was still problems at the back for Liverpool, and there was 5 shots on target for Southampton. Alisson had to make 3 world-class saves in this game. That's something that you've just got to really think about. That this is Liverpool, this is Núñez scoring goals, this is this is Firmino scoring goals, again, reacting to being left out of the World Cup squad for Brazil. You got Andrew Robertson looking fantastic in this game, but still you had to rely on Alisson. And trust me, if you go and watch the game, you will see there were these moments where Alisson, he makes world-class saves look so fucking easy. It's ridiculous. Like, he didn't even flinch for some of these saves, and I'm telling you, these are absolute fucking worldies. These are unbelievable. So, I don't know. Liverpool, they're an enigma. I can't tell you what they're going to do next. They're up to 6 now, but I still think the top 4 might evade them this season. It's really going to come down to 1 or 2 games ultimately, because, you know, they've shown they can beat City, but then they go and lose to Nottingham Forest. And based on this defence that they had here, based on the ever-lurking Trent factor, I mean, pray for Trent to get injured at the World Cup. Not badly, not seriously, just enough so you don't have to play him at Liverpool, or he's got like a prolonged recovery of a mild injury, because he was bad again. He was bad again. I don't know. It's just, their defence just isn't very good, which is crazy when you look at the people who are in it. I mean, like, Van Dijk's the guy that's coasting without any criticism right now, and he probably should be criticised a little bit. But anyway, whatever. Liverpool win. That's the main thing, I guess. And so that takes us to the last Premier League game I'm going to talk about. Everton got absolutely dumpstered by Bournemouth. 3-0, and you know what that means? We can put Fat Frank back on Fraud Watch. I took him off Fraud Watch, didn't I? I took him off. But, you know what? Sometimes I get, it's you. You influence me. You unduly influence me. There were some people saying, how do you feel about Everton today? You know, look at them, they're doing okay. They're in the mid-table. There's no way they're going down. Here's the key thing. Everton are staying the same while other teams are getting better. We've hit that middle point of the season. We've hit that World Cup break. And what's been going on? Well, I'll tell you what's been going on. Leeds have been looking better. Bournemouth are grinding out points they shouldn't be able to grind. They should be rock bottom of the table. Leicester have just weathered a storm of criticism. Players didn't get their moves. Tielemans stayed. Maddison stayed. And now suddenly everyone realises, holy shit, we're bottom of the table. We're better than this. And they started playing football. Brentford, as we talked about, they're improving. Crystal Palace getting results, looking legit. All of this is happening. And, you know, Southampton just appointed a new manager. Is that going to be an improvement? And meanwhile, Everton have stayed the same. Yeah, I think they've had a really good centre-back pairing. I was very happy to see Cody away with the England squad. But this game was an embarrassment for Everton. It was ridiculous. They just got out-muscled. They just got absolutely fucking out-muscled. Kiefer Moore, in particular, the Welsh boy, who will be in the World Cup squad, he was just all over these defenders. He just fucking was so strong, so big, just a menace, just a trundling menace, and just the defenders couldn't cope with him. Didn't look like they didn't want to be there. The game pivoted on a bit of controversy. Again, referees not doing their job. Yes, they've got every right to feel slightly aggrieved, Everton. There was a head injury and a build-up to the second goal for Bournemouth, and the ref absolutely had to stop play. It was as clear a head injury as you're going to see. Protocol demands you stop play immediately. Instead, he played on, and Bournemouth scored a goal from the next phase of play, and then he stopped the game. And it's like, no, that's not how you referee. That's not what the rules state. The only way the ref can even excuse that is to say, I wasn't aware it was a head injury, in which case, what you doing on the fucking park? Get yourself to Specsavers, you daft cunt. So I do feel a little bit sorry for Everton because that second goal was bogus, but you can't feel too sorry for them. They were terrible. They were diabolical. Iwobi, probably the best fucking player on the park for them. Do you remember Anthony Gordon? 40 million to Chelsea. Where the fuck's he? Do you remember that? You remember when that was like a thing? He's playing, but he's just not there. He's invisible. It's absolutely ridiculous. Yeah, Everton got to have a long, hard look at themselves because their attacking players were just absolutely, and their defenders were just piss weak. And I'm so sick and tired of Pickford's little beaky bird face fucking shouting at everyone and punching the ground and having a tantrum every time someone makes a defensive lapse. That's not how you lead. Big Neville Southall wouldn't do that. It's a fucking joke. So, anyway, About Bournemouth, they're up to 13th now, and O'Neill has done a fantastic job. They're up to 13th in the Premier League, last 16 of the Carabao Cup, beating teams like Everton comfortably, grinding out results, and he's still not officially been offered the job. This is bonkers. If a caretaker manager comes in and does this with this squad, and remember, this squad, by the way, Scott Parker said it was shit. Scott Parker went on fucking national TV and said this squad was shit, and the board didn't buy quality, and we were gonna lose every game 6-0, 9-0 because of it. That's what he said. And O'Neill came in and said, look, lads, you're better than this. And they are better than that. And they've proved it. And they've got 16 points in the Prem. I thought they were going to be one of the worst teams to ever play in Premier League history. But O'Neill's turned all that around. You got to give him the job. But instead, they're fucking talking about bringing in Bielsa. I'm astounded. I'm astounded at that. Yeah, I mean, listen, you've already got a team under O'Neill that can score goals, but at least they're capable of a clean sheet now and then. You bring in Bielsa, it's going to be a hell of a ride, but it is a ride where you're headed to the fucking bottom for sure. Give O'Neill the job. Bournemouth deserve better than Bielsa. So, the last bit we'll talk about, Southgate's squad. Well then, lots to talk about here. I'm going to have it on my screen because there was also some just ridiculous comments from Southgate justifying his picks. Let's just see. So I'll read the defenders he's took. Trent Alexander-Arnold, Connor Cody, Eric Dyer, Harry Maguire, Luke Shaw, John Stones, Kieran Trippier, Kyle Walker and Ben White. And so immediately you'll notice that they've got no coverage on the left. I mean, that seems like an unbelievable oversight. If Luke Shaw picks up a knock in a game, they've got no coverage on the left. Also, as well, is that a bunch of players that screams like quality to you? Like, probably when you think about who's going to start, it ain't great. And for me, I feel, I'd feel a lot better with a Tomori in there instead of somebody else. I don't know who it would be. You can choose that, but that is not a great defender. And he's talking about, world class and how good they all are. Nah, I'm not sold on it at all. Tomori's been outstanding and just should have been in. Should have been in for sure. Looking at the midfield, it's weird. No Sancho. Sancho's not in the squad. What was it, like £95 million? And no one gives a shit that he's not in. That's fucking crazy to me. That's how much of a flop at United he's actually been. It's ridiculous. I thought that would have made headlines. What should absolutely make headline is, why is Calvin Phillips in there? Why is Calvin Phillips in the England squad when he's played 1 minute of football this season? He's been injured all season, and you're taking him to a World Cup. You can't say anything to justify that. He's got no current form. We don't know how he's going to react to his injury, whether or not he's going to be able to come back or whether he'll break down with the extra minutes. We've got no idea if, the form that he had to get his move to City was temporary. And I suspect it is. I said at the time, I don't believe he's a City caliber player. It's a joke. It's a joke. And I look at the midfield, and it's Bellingham, Conor Gallagher, Jordan Henderson, Mason Mount, Calvin Phillips and Declan Rice. And obviously, in among the forwards, you've got Phil Foden and Jack Grealish, Raheem Sterling and Saka, and James Maddison, and they'll probably be played, wide or in the centre or off a striker or whatever. But that to me is a very poor selection, actually. And so I don't know. I don't know why he didn't feel compelled to talk about Sancho in the same way he was talking about Harry Maguire. The good news is at least he saw sense and took James Maddison. James Maddison had a knock in the Leicester game and he beat West Ham, and people were a little bit afraid that he might have missed his opportunity to get to the World Cup. But Maddison it had to go. He had to go, and he has to start, in my opinion. I think out of these bunch of midfielders we're talking about here, probably the form midfielder out of the bunch. He definitely should be in the starting team. I don't see how you could leave him out. And the idea that Grealish, who's just been so mediocre this season, the idea that Grealish is a guy that, we have him in the squad because he's a 100 million player. You're not getting he doesn't play like a 100 million player. It's a joke. The only other vaguely controversial pick was, leaving Ivan Toney out. We talked about that earlier, and taking Callum Wilson. I didn't want him to go as a Newcastle fan for obvious reasons. dangerous for us. If he gets a knock and he's liable to, or if he pulls up, we got problems. He's like, it's so essential we keep him fit for as long as possible because he will get an injury this season. It's almost inevitable. But, I'm glad he's getting his flowers at least. He deserves it. He's worked unbelievably hard for the club this season. And with the Ivan Toney FA stuff, obviously, it's a no-brainer just from an optics perspective. Rashford being in there, I mean, yikes. Harry Kane obviously goes, that's fine. Phil Foden in there. I mean, I feel this will be Foden's World Cup. I think he's in great form for City and he's continuing to evolve and show what a all-round great player he is. He's really impressed me this year. But overall, I think the squad, I think the England squad is deceptively poor. Lots of big names, big reputations that actually don't deliver. And that's probably going to be the tail of the tape, especially with Southgate mugging for the mics every time he's out there, except he hasn't actually got the balls to speak out about Qatar. And by the way, how did you like that Budweiser sponsorship, guys? You all feeling good about that fucking rug pull 2 days before the World Cup starts, yeah? Couldn't have saw that coming a mile off, could we? So anyway, that's the Prem review. All we have to do now is enjoy the most despicable World Cup ever conceived. One that's built on a bedrock of bribery, corruption, human rights violations, unreported deaths of migrant workers, and sinister overtones from the government controlling it. So yeah, let's do it. Go Wales, I guess. I'll see you for some watch-alongs during the World Cup, probably. I'm going to watch some of the Wales games with Sam, and then after that, let's just get back to the fucking Prem as quickly as possible. See you then.